Stay there and think about what you've done, you lousy wife.
After those words, I couldn't hear Matt's or his parents' voices anymore. In the pitch-black basement, the only light was from my smartphone. I didn't even know how much longer its battery would last. At that moment, all I felt was despair, unable to move. What should I do? At this rate, even my baby. I couldn't protect my precious baby in my belly, and I couldn't stop crying out of guilt. Then I heard a notification sound from my phone. Please help me. I answered the call, clutching onto the slightest hope. 1 week later,
Oh, that was fun.
Matt and his parents returned from their trip to Hawaii. They walked into the house with satisfied smiles. As his mother went to put away their luggage,
Oh, what's that smell?
she noticed an unpleasant odor coming from the basement. At first, she didn't know what the smell was.
Could it be the smell of something rotten?
Realizing what it was, she hurried to the basement. Matt and his father, wondering what was going on, followed her. Matt's mother opened the basement door and cautiously peeked inside. My name is Sarah Carter, a 28-year-old working mom. I grew up in a family of 3, my younger brother Nate, who is single, and my mother, who passed away a few years ago. Our father died in a car accident when Nate was little. Our mother was incredibly strong.
I may not have much time for you because of work, but I'll make sure you never suffer.
She said this and worked from early morning till late at night. Sometimes she would juggle multiple jobs, working herself to the bone to raise us. Mom, here's my pay from my part-time job. Please use it for the household. I was always worried she might collapse one day. So, to help out as much as I could, I gave her all my earnings from my part-time job. At first, she would say, "No, it's fine," but reluctantly accepted when I insisted. However, she never used it for the household.
This is your hard-earned money. Use it for yourself.
She saved all of it instead. When I entered college, she gave it all to me. Thanks to her, I had a stress-free college life.
Seeing you two happy is my greatest joy.
She always said that and was always thinking of us. That kind and strong mother of mine passed away from illness just after I started working.
I'll protect you from now on, sis.
Nate declared at our mom's funeral. He grew up strong and kind, much like our mother.
I want to be just like Mom.
He studied hard and achieved his dreams. I'm so proud of him. Nate and another person helped me overcome my grief and look forward again. That other person is my husband, Matt.
Are you okay? You look down. I'm here if you want to talk.
Matt was originally a senior colleague at our company. We were just coworkers. His sudden approach surprised me, but his frequent kind words and willingness to listen gradually drew me to him.
I'll be by your side. I promise to make you happy.
He asked me out, and we started dating. After several years together, we decided to get married.
Congrats, sis. I'm sure Dad and Mom in heaven are blessing you too.
Nate said, celebrating our marriage. Matt's parents also said, "Think of us as your real parents from now on," which made me really happy. Surrounded by kind family, I felt fortunate. I truly believed that until we got married.
If you don't mind, Sarah, how about living with my parents?
Huh?
We're getting married anyway, and it's a waste to keep paying rent.
Nate and I moved out of our family home when we went to college. After Mom passed away, we hesitated a bit, but eventually sold the house. I'm okay with living together.
Thank you, Sarah.
Back then, Matt's parents, Mark and Karen, were very kind to me, so I decided to live with them before the wedding. Mark and Karen welcomed me and always treated me kindly. However, there was one person who was cold towards me.
What? I didn't know we were living together.
That was Matt's sister, Laura. She ignored me when I greeted her and treated me as if I didn't exist.
I'm sorry about my daughter.
She's probably upset she wasn't informed.
Mark and Karen apologized for her behavior many times. In response, I always said, "It's okay," but I felt something was off. Laura's gaze towards me was almost pitiful. Even when I tried to talk to her, she avoided me. And I never got a chance to understand her feelings. Can I really handle this marriage with things like this? I often worried but believed we would eventually understand each other. With such kind people like Matt and his parents, Laura couldn't be a bad person. I thought naively, but I was wrong.
Now she can't escape.
Yeah. It was worth putting up with everything until now.
After the wedding, Matt's parents completely changed. They started ordering me around like a slave, saying, "Cook, clean, pull the weeds in the garden," and more.
A wife's money belongs to her husband's family. Hand over your bank book.
Yeah, we'll make good use of that money.
They tried to take my bank book from me. I immediately talked to Matt about it.
My parents would never do that.
He dismissed me coldly. With my in-laws' attitudes, the thought of divorce crossed my mind. But I had no home to return to, and Nate was busy with work. I didn't want to bother Nate, who was working hard for his dreams. My co-workers would likely trust Matt, who had been with the company longer than I had. I couldn't talk to anyone and was left struggling alone.
Sarah, I did the laundry for you, so please take a break.
Laura reached out to me, exhausted from juggling work and household chores. She secretly helped me whenever Matt's parents weren't around. While I cooked under Karen's watchful eye, she would do other chores. When I reluctantly dealt with Mark, she would subtly intervene to end the conversation.
You're really an incompetent wife.
Good thing you have Matt. No one else would want to take in a lousy wife like you.
When my in-laws mocked me like that,
Don't pay attention to what they say. You're doing great every day, Sarah. You're an amazing person.
Laura always stood up for me and encouraged me. Without Laura, my spirit would have been broken long ago. Grateful for her, I wondered why she was so kind to me. Why do you go to such lengths for me?
What you're going through is what I went through.
After making sure my in-laws were asleep, I approached Laura. What she told me was shocking.
My brother and parents are horrible people. They believe that women should obey their family and think it's okay to treat them like slaves.
Because of this, Laura had suffered a lot over the years. Even though Karen was also a daughter-in-law, she managed to avoid such treatment by skillfully navigating her position and receiving substantial support from her own family.
I wanted to help you escape, but they made sure you could never get away.
My in-laws kept a close watch on Laura to prevent her from telling me anything. Unable to give me advice, she had acted cold as her only form of resistance. I see. I'm sorry for misunderstanding. I always thought you hated me.
Oh no, I'm sorry for not being able to protect you.
Laura said, looking genuinely sorry. She was truly kind-hearted. She shouldn't be in such a place. As I thought about discussing our future plans,
Oh, you're still up.
Matt woke up and I had to abandon the idea. Seeing Matt tilt his head in confusion at us, I brushed him off and started thinking about the future. What should I do now? I knew I had to find a way to get out of this house. Just then,
Congratulations.
what? Feeling unwell, I went to the doctor and found out I was pregnant. I was very happy about the baby. However, being pregnant meant I would be limited in what I could do. The first person I contacted was Laura.
Pregnancy is something to celebrate, but
I understood what she meant. Maybe I should run away, but Matt had followed me to the hospital, insisting on driving me, and I couldn't just leave Laura behind. As I was pondering what to do,
Is it true that you're pregnant?
I heard Karen's voice on the other end of the phone, and I immediately thought, oh no. Laura must have thought the same.
Mom, were you listening to our conversation?
Laura's panicked voice echoed. Of all people, Karen found out. Karen shares even the smallest things with Mark and Matt. So they would soon know too.
Mom called. Honestly, you should have told me first.
Resigned, I left the hospital to be greeted by Matt's beaming smile. Holding his hand, I returned to his parents' house with mixed feelings.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Well done. We finally have a grandchild.
My in-laws welcomed me with smiles. It was hard to believe these were the same people who had ordered me around and insulted me. I glanced at Laura, who stood behind them. Her eyes said, "You won't escape now." After that, I experienced a brief period of peace.
Take it easy. Don't overdo it.
Matt was kinder than ever and always looked out for me. Knowing how severe my morning sickness was, he arranged for me to start maternity leave early.
I'll handle the laundry.
I'll do the cleaning, Sarah. You should rest.
My in-laws took over the housework and allowed me to rest while suffering from morning sickness. The one who bore the brunt of it was Laura.
You can't even get married, let alone get pregnant. The least you can do is work and contribute to us.
While I lay down, I heard Karen bossing Laura around. Now it was my turn to help her. I tried to get up, but
Please rest, Sarah. Don't worry about me.
Laura refused my help.
More importantly, do you know the gender?
No, it's still too early to tell. She seemed to be thinking about something after my response. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "I can't be sure, but..."
If the baby is a girl, it could be bad.
She frowned as she said that. I understood what she meant 5 months into my pregnancy.
Do you know the baby's gender?
Yes, it's a girl.
A girl.
Karen suddenly screamed, interrupting me.
This is terrible.
Not only Karen, but also Mark started yelling. Confused, I looked at Matt. He was frowning too. And then I remembered what Laura had told me. Right in this house.
We only accept male grandchildren.
Girls had no value.
How could you be pregnant with a girl, you useless woman?
You've really let us down.
My in-laws insulted me. Matt didn't help. Instead, he glared at me.
You've really disappointed me, Sarah.
His words blamed me. After that, I returned to my life as a slave. Even while pregnant, they ordered me around.
Sarah, I'll do it. Please sit down.
The only difference this time was that Laura actively helped me. But that seemed to irritate my in-laws. Hey, where's Laura? One day, after returning from a checkup, Laura was nowhere to be seen. Worried about the only ally I had, I asked about her.
We kicked that useless girl out.
That was the reply I got. Apparently, they took advantage of my absence to throw Laura out with nothing but the clothes on her back. I held back my urge to contact her immediately and waited until my in-laws were asleep to reach out. Laura, are you okay?
I'm fine. I managed to grab my phone and wallet before they kicked me out.
She was staying at a nearby internet cafe for now. However, she couldn't stay there forever. I have a brother. If you mention my name, he'll take you in. I told her to seek help from Nate. I wish I could contact Nate, but his contact information on my phone had disappeared. It seems someone in the family deleted it while I was in the bath. I quickly gave her Nate's workplace and name and hung up before I could be interrupted. Since then, I've been trying to protect my unborn child while surviving in a hostile household. Since that day, I've been constantly monitored and my phone is checked, so I can't contact anyone. I have no idea what's happening with Laura.
Lousy wife. If you don't want your belly kicked, clean the basement.
One day, I was ordered to clean the basement. I didn't want to accept it, but today the whole family was present. If I resisted, they might actually harm my baby. So reluctantly, I headed to the basement.
What are you waiting for? Get moving.
It was dark inside, and I cautiously descended the basement stairs, relying on the light from above. Just as I reached the bottom step, what? The light from above disappeared, and I looked up in a panic. The basement door was tightly shut. Hey, what are you doing? Open the door.
A perfect place for a worthless wife.
I was trapped in the pitch black space, shouting loudly, but the response was mocking. This isn't funny, even as a joke.
Shut up. We're going on a week-long trip to Hawaii. Reflect on your disrespect towards us while you're down there.
Yeah, and apologize for getting pregnant with a girl.
I could hear the laughter of my in-laws from the other side of the door. Matt's laugh was mixed in as well.
Stay there and think about what you've done, you lousy wife.
After those words, I couldn't hear Matt's or his parents' voices anymore. In the pitch black basement, the only light was from my smartphone. I didn't even know how much longer its battery would last. At that moment, all I felt was despair, unable to move. What should I do? At this rate, even my baby. My precious child inside me. I couldn't protect her, and I couldn't stop crying from guilt. Then I heard a notification sound from my phone. Please help me. I answered the call, clinging to a glimmer of hope. All I could think about was my unborn child. For her sake, I had to get out of here. That was all I focused on as I started to move. A week later,
Oh, that was fun.
Matt and his family returned from their trip to Hawaii. They entered the house with satisfied smiles. As Karen went to put away their luggage,
Oh, what's that smell?
she noticed an unpleasant odor coming from the basement. At first, she didn't know what it was.
Could it be the smell of something rotting?
Realizing what the smell was, Karen hurried to the basement. Matt and Mark followed, wondering what was happening. Karen opened the basement door and cautiously looked inside.
What is this?
Karen screamed at the sight of the basement. Hearing her scream, those of us hiding in a nearby room moved. There, we saw Karen sitting down in shock, with Mark and Matt standing stunned.
Sarah, Anne,
Matt's gaze turned towards us, and he shouted upon seeing us. His voice made my in-laws turn towards us as well.
What is going on?
Karen, not noticing the person behind me, yelled. The basement was filled with rotten eggs. The eggs were causing the foul smell.
What have you done?
As Karen moved towards me, Nate and Laura stepped in front of me, blocking her. Finally noticing them, Karen stopped.
It's been a while since the wedding. By the way, don't you notice anything about my sister?
With a cold look, Nate asked, making Matt and his parents look closely at me. They looked shocked.
your belly. Could it be?
Yes, my belly, which had grown due to pregnancy, was now flat. Matt realized what it meant, and I gave him a bright smile. Yes, after you locked me in the basement, my water broke, and I gave birth. A week ago, Laura had contacted me on my phone. Having safely met up with Nate, she now moved to get me out. She found out I was trapped in the basement and rushed to help me. Fortunately, Laura knew where the basement door and key were and, with Nate's help, managed to open it. As soon as I escaped, my water broke. They called an ambulance right away, and I safely delivered my babies at the hospital.
My babies?
I explained, and Matt murmured in confusion. Yes, that's right. I'm having twins, a girl and a boy. My in-laws' eyes widened in surprise. It turned out that one of the twins was a boy, just as they had wanted. When I told them this, they were stunned. Then,
Well done.
Now we have an heir.
what? A few seconds later, my in-laws were overjoyed. I felt nothing but disgust toward them. What are you talking about? They are my precious children. I won't let them be this family's heirs.
What are you saying?
Matt glared at me. I handed him the divorce papers. Matt froze.
Matt, this is perfect. We don't need a lousy wife like her.
That's right. Just take the heir and divorce her.
My in-laws urged Matt, but he didn't respond. He silently stared at the completed divorce papers.
I won't give up custody of either of them. My sister has our best lawyer on her side.
A lawyer?
Yes. I'm a lawyer. I won't show any mercy for my sister or Laura.
Nate glared coldly at them as he said this.
Let's go, Sarah.
Laura, also glaring at my in-laws, urged me to leave.
You'll regret this.
Nate said as we left the house together. After that, I headed to the hospital. I'm sorry for making you wait, my babies. My children were still at the hospital. I had consulted with the hospital, and they kindly agreed to take care of them for me.
All right, let's go.
I then took my children to the law firm where Nate worked.
We've been expecting you. Thank you for coming.
As I entered, Mr. Kevin Brown, who was handling my case, greeted me with a smile. Kevin looked at my children and softened, saying, "They're adorable." Thank you.
They truly are. They look just like you, Sarah.
I thanked him and started discussing what needed to be done next. Of course, the discussion was about the divorce, child support, and alimony. Just then, Matt called me.
Put it on speaker.
Following Kevin's instruction, I answered the call.
I'm really sorry. I don't want to break up with you. Let's start over.
I mentally replied with, huh? What on earth is he talking about? I'm not interested in starting over. I don't want to stay with someone who locked his pregnant wife in a basement and went to Hawaii.
I couldn't go against my parents. I had no choice.
No choice? You were laughing along with them, weren't you? The sound of laughter I heard at that time. I still can't forget the shock I felt when I heard it.
What do you mean by it can't be helped? What you did was a clear crime.
At that moment, Nate calmly stated this. They probably didn't expect to hear another man's voice besides Nate's.
Who are you?
Matt's angry voice echoed.
I'm Sarah's attorney. I've also heard from my colleague, Sarah's brother. From now on, I'll be representing her and dealing with you.
After saying that, Nick took a deep breath. Then he directed a sharp gaze at the phone.
Let me speak to you as an individual. What you did was utterly disgraceful. You treated your family like slaves, neglected them, and went on a trip to Hawaii while your pregnant wife was suffering. Have you no shame?
Nick's clear statement made him seem incredibly reliable.
Oh, and from now on, I will also be representing Laura. So refrain from contacting her. We will show no mercy to a despicable family like yours.
Adding to Nick's words, Nate also spoke up. Matt fell silent and the call was ended. Looking at the two lawyers with Laura.
Leave it to us.
We will make sure they pay for their crimes.
They nodded with reassuring smiles. Seeing them, we felt confident in leaving everything in their hands. Thanks to Nick's efforts, I divorced Matt without ever having to see him again. I received custody and child support for the twins, along with a substantial amount of alimony from everyone except Laura.
I'm truly sorry. Please reconsider.
Messages like this from Matt kept coming, but I completely ignored them. Ignoring him was likely the most painful thing for him. He hated being ignored and always tried to draw attention to himself when we were dating.
Please don't ignore me.
His tearful voice was recorded on my voicemail. But I ignored it and ensured I got what I deserved. As a result, Matt's family ended up with a massive debt. Just when I thought it was all finally over, a coworker contacted me.
Sarah, there are some things being said about you at the office.
It seems Matt has been spreading various rumors about me at work. He's been saying I abandoned my duties as a wife and ran away with my kids to be with another man. Hearing the details, I immediately contacted Nick.
This is really bad. Let's prepare to sue for defamation right away.
So I decided to sue him. I also vented to my coworkers about the truth of the situation.
That's unbelievable. He's the one at fault, yet he's using your maternity leave to spread lies.
I wonder why I fell for him.
Maybe he calculated everything and approached you on purpose.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but agree. He probably took advantage of my grief over losing my mother. He might have also exploited the fact that I had no family home to return to.
For now, I'll clear up the misunderstandings at work.
My coworker followed through on that promise. Matt ended up with even more debt due to a defamation lawsuit and eventually quit his job due to the stigma from others. Apparently, my in-laws also felt ashamed. When the ambulance came that day, the neighbors came out to see what was going on.
I told them everything about what we had been through without hiding anything.
As a result, they became the subject of neighborhood gossip. Though my in-laws tried to explain, no one listened. They're supposed to be working to pay the alimony, but they've been hiding at home. That house was kept clean by Laura and me. Now without us, it's in disarray, and the neighborhood kids call it the haunted house. That's what happens when you only think about yourself without considering the consequences. While thinking about this, Nate and Laura came back home. Currently, Laura and I are staying with Nate. I don't have a family home to rely on, but with Nate and Laura actively helping with the twins, I can take care of them more easily and comfortably than when I was with my in-laws.
Sis, here. The office staff sent this for the twins.
Thank you. Please let them know I really appreciate it. The staff at the law firm have experience with children. Their advice has been incredibly helpful.
Sis, we have something important to tell you.
We wanted to inform you first, Sarah.
With serious expressions, they began to speak. I straightened up and listened.
We've decided to date with marriage in mind.
They announced. Apparently, Laura was drawn to Nate's efforts to help, and Nate had fallen for her at first sight. Recently, they confirmed their feelings for each other and started dating with the intention of marriage. Congratulations to both of you. I'm looking forward to having Laura as my sister. I sincerely congratulated them. Nate had never dated anyone before. Laura had been too overwhelmed by her parents to think about dating. I'm truly happy to see them together and happy.
I was always called useless since I was little. I was forced to do all the housework.
Laura began to speak, looking into the distance as if recalling the past.
I wasn't even allowed to leave the house except for shopping.
Despite this, Laura started working from home to escape. When her work started to gain traction, her parents found out. They took all her earnings.
I had given up. I thought I'd never be free, never be happy. Then you came along, Sarah.
What?
I wanted to help you, Sarah, and that was the first time I had the resolve to stand up to my family.
Until then, she had always followed her family's orders. But with my presence, she found the courage to resist and act more assertively. Ultimately, she achieved the freedom she had once given up on.
It's all thanks to you, Sarah. Because you came, I met someone as wonderful as Nate. I can't thank you enough.
Laura smiled through her tears as she said this. Crying, I smiled back and said, "Thank you too." Having brought my in-laws to their downfall, I vowed to attain a happiness they could only envy. Seeing Laura's smile, which my in-laws could never bring out, was the first step. A few days later, I met with Nick at a nearby cafe.
Sorry to call you out. How are the twins?
It's okay. My brother and the office staff are taking care of them. I couldn't help but laugh at him talking to me politely. Really, don't worry about it. I wanted to thank you in the first place. Nick had helped us a lot with my in-laws, and he always looked out for Nate. That's why I reached out to him to express my gratitude.
In that case, would you like to have dinner with me sometime?
He had replied, leading to our meal together. Honestly, I didn't expect you to ask me out.
Sorry to surprise you. The truth is, I've been attracted to you for a while.
Nick's words took me by surprise. I never thought someone as accomplished as him would have feelings for me.
You might not be ready to think about it now, but if you ever feel like dating again, please consider me.
He spoke earnestly. His sincerity made my heart race. After finishing our meal, we left the cafe together.
Sarah.
I turned around when I heard someone call my name. What is that, Matt? Standing there was a haggard-looking Matt. He walked towards me with a happy expression.
Sarah, I've been looking for you. You only have me, right?
Only him. I might have thought that a while ago, but not anymore. Sorry, but I don't need you anymore.
What?
As soon as I declared this, Nick pulled me close.
I will make her happy. There's no place for you anymore.
Nick said, glaring at Matt. Seeing Nick and me standing together, Matt.
But I have no one but you.
He tried to cling to me. I only found him annoying.
We can still make it work, so please.
If you keep bothering her, I'll call the police.
Nick's words stopped Matt in his tracks. Getting the police involved would be a big problem for him, already drowning in debt.
Damn it. Fine.
He muttered and decided to leave. He turned and walked away slowly. His back looked small and lonely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have touched you so much since we're not even dating yet.
It's okay. Besides, I was really happy to hear you say that. Nick blushed but smiled at my words. Seeing his expression made me realize my future was probably already decided. Later, I heard rumors that my ex-in-law's family had fallen apart. Matt was the first to leave. He apparently loved me deeply and disappeared when he realized he couldn't win me back. With their main breadwinner gone, my ex-in-laws fell further into debt just to survive. They eventually sold their house and are now living under a bridge, barely getting by. Not that I care anymore. I muttered as I headed toward my beloved children. Time flew by, and the twins turned 5. They run around energetically every day, and Nick and I are always busy keeping up with them.
You're finally getting married, Sarah.
Laura smiled at me, holding her peacefully sleeping son. She married Nate 4 years ago and had her son last year. Today is my and Nick's wedding day.
I'll make sure you and the twins are always happy.
Yes, I believe in you. Let's be happy together. With that promise, we headed to the venue, believing that this time we would find true happiness.
It's been a while. Still childless. You're a defective woman who can't show me my grandchild.
I've had my share of troubles with Susan, my mother-in-law, in the past, but even now, thinking about it makes my blood boil. Her harassment over my inability to have children was just too much. I don't know how much she wanted grandchildren, but it really hurt that she blamed me entirely for not having them. To call someone defective, what a horrible thing to say. I couldn't help but be somewhat impressed by it. Right now, I'm at the park, and I'm not alone. My child is right there, you know? The look on Susan's face when she heard that. She had been so eager, practically dying for a grandchild, and there it was. But reality can be cruel. She doesn't realize that what goes around comes around. How naive. I guess it's time she figured it out. I won't let her forget this now. My name is Anna, and I'm a 45-year-old homemaker. I've always loved children, which led me to earn a teaching credential at university and work as a teacher at a public elementary school. The teaching job was challenging at times, but there was joy in being involved in the children's growth, and I felt it was my true calling. I was immersed in my work, but one day a childhood friend introduced me to someone. That was how I met my husband, Michael. At the time, Michael was 25 years old, had recently graduated from college and was a history teacher at a middle school. Apparently, he was concerned about the lack of opportunities to meet people while working at a middle school. Additionally, he had been devoted solely to his studies during college, so he hadn't dated women much. He had mentioned that his interest in dating women was the reason he consulted a friend. Even though the ages of the children we teach at elementary and middle school are different, I and he are both teachers, so she introduced him to me. When my friend introduced him, I wasn't seeing anyone and was all about work, so I wasn't too keen on it, but I thought I'd meet him at least once. I remember that day clearly. We were supposed to meet at a cafe, but he was late. I'll wait another 30 minutes, and if he doesn't show up, I'm leaving. Just then, someone ran into the cafe.
I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting.
Michael, gasping for breath, looked as if he could barely stand. No, it's okay. I was just worried something had happened.
Actually, I got caught up recommending books to a student in my class, and before I knew it, it was time to meet.
Hearing his response, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. At the same time, I could tell he was a good person. If he could get that involved in discussing books with a student, he must be well loved. And I couldn't blame him for imagining Michael eagerly introducing recommended books to his students. I'm sorry, it's our first meeting, and I'm laughing so much. I want to know more about you.
Oh, really? Seeing you smile made my nerves disappear.
You were nervous.
Yes, well, I didn't expect to meet such a wonderful woman.
Michael said, somewhat shyly. Come on, I'm almost 35, you know? I'm probably quite a bit older than you.
I'm 25 now, but age doesn't matter to me.
Michael and I started to have more conversations, trying to understand each other better. It was clear he was well liked by his students for his passion for work, his compassion towards others, and his popularity. It seemed that Michael also thought highly of me.
We haven't known each other long, but I'd regret it if I didn't say this now. Would you consider a serious relationship with marriage in mind with me?
Michael asked, his face turning red as he looked at me. My mind was made up. I think I could have a good relationship with you, Michael. Thank you. Time spent with Michael was always enjoyable. Beyond our dates, I found myself wanting to be with him more and more, and then he proposed to me.
Since the first time I met you, Anna, I've hoped we could be together forever. Will you marry me?
Yes, I feel like I can be happy with you, Michael. I answered without hesitation. We met each other's parents and made it official. We were going to get married. Marrying the person I love and living together was something I couldn't have imagined just a short time ago. We discussed our future work and children as we planned our marriage. Michael respected my thoughts and my life. That was one of the reasons I fell for him. Even after we're married, I want to continue working. I really love my job as a teacher.
I can see that, Anna. But what about children? I'd like to have them if possible, but I want to respect your thoughts on actually having them.
Of course, I want children too. It might be tough balancing them with work, but I hope we can have them sooner rather than later. Michael and I decided to try for a child while I continued working within what was possible. This is something bestowed upon us. We can't control it on our own. However, I didn't realize that troubling times were starting to brew in our life.
I'm heading out to sports practice.
Okay, darling. You'll be back by dinner, right? Take care. After seeing Michael off, I was drinking coffee alone in the living room when the doorbell rang.
Hello, Anna.
Hi, Susan. Michael's at school for sports practice. Is there something you need? Susan seemed momentarily disappointed, but then turned back to me and suddenly said,
It's almost been a year since you got married, hasn't it?
Yes, thanks to you.
That's not what I mean. Before you look after other people's kids, you should have your own. If you can't even manage that, you might as well quit your job.
Susan looked frustrated, as if she couldn't convey her message clearly. It's kind of sudden to say that.
Isn't it about time? Or were you not planning on telling me until you're stable?
What? Children?
You're 35, aren't you? It's normal to have 2 or 3 kids by now.
I was taken aback by her sudden interest in having children. But this isn't something I can just decide on my own, so I decided to be honest. Michael and I have been talking about it. If it happens, you'll be the first to know.
What are you being so casual about? I can't understand how you can afford to wait.
Her increasingly anxious demeanor puzzled me, especially since she had seemed so calm when we met before we were married. I'm sorry if I upset you, but this is not something I can control on my own.
So what are you saying? Is it Michael's fault?
Then Susan walked briskly into the room, and from inside, I could hear Susan's voice.
What is this machine? I just tripped over it.
I'm sorry, that's an air purifier.
An air purifier? It's so big.
I'm particularly sensitive to the air quality because of my dust allergy. I'm really sensitive to house dust, and I start sneezing uncontrollably. That's why I have this air purifier, even though it's in the way. I'm sorry. Then Susan sighed heavily.
Are you just making excuses?
Excuses?
Because that's it. You say it's dust or allergies, and that makes you weak, doesn't it? If you really need fresh air, just open a window.
Unfortunately, I live on the second floor of an apartment building in a busy area. I'm also worried about exhaust gas. Well, there is exhaust gas, so I can't really open the windows much.
Relying on such a nonsensical device. That's why you can't have kids, isn't it?
Susan seemed convinced she was right as she looked at me with a self-assured expression.
You want children, right? Then come to my house next week.
But, well,
it's fine. My husband isn't home, and I'm the only one there, so it won't bother anyone.
I guess I have no choice but to go. Just thinking about it made me feel depressed. The following week, I visited my in-laws' house.
Come this way.
Susan pulled me by her hand and led me into the living room. As soon as I entered, a strange smell hit my nose. Excuse me, but I hesitated, not knowing how to describe the strange smell, when suddenly a cup of tea was handed to me.
Here, this tea is supposed to help with fertility.
Am I supposed to drink this? And yours, Susan?
I'm not drinking it. They say good medicine tastes bitter, so I'm forcing myself to give it to you.
The tea had a strange color and smell, and I couldn't imagine drinking it. While I was troubled, Susan unzipped my bag and stuffed a paper bag inside. What's this? Please don't touch my bag without asking.
Don't talk to me like I'm a thief. They say drinking 4 cups of this tea a day works wonders. Here's the next thing.
I was dragged out to the yard by her. There, I saw a mountain of laundry piled up. What's with all this laundry? It was towels, small clothes, bibs. These things were clearly not hers.
My friend gave them to me. Touching and washing baby clothes is said to increase fertility. It's also good practice for when you have a child.
Then, from nowhere, she brought a large wash tub and a washboard.
They say if you wash with all your heart, a child will be happy to dwell in your womb.
I watched her walk back to the living room alone, feeling incredulous. I do want children, and Michael and I have talked about it. Despite us having our own lives and rhythms, and agreeing to wait without rushing, I can't understand why Susan is in such a hurry. It made me incredibly angry, but I couldn't just do nothing and go home. As instructed, I washed the piled-up children's clothes on the washboard and hung them to dry. Susan, I'm done.
Then come back the day after tomorrow. Wash them here like today.
No, I have work the day after tomorrow.
Work. You can make time before or after work if you really want children. If you really want them, you'd make an effort, right?
I'm competitive, so I ended up doing as she said. After school, I went to in-laws' house late at night and washed unknown children's clothes by hand in the dark. Because I was washing a lot of clothes by hand in the cold, my hands became rough. I use hand cream to prevent it, but my hands quickly became dry and chapped.
Hey Anna, what happened to your hands?
Michael looked at me with concern, but I hesitated to tell him the truth. To me, it felt like an outdated superstition, but for Michael, it was something his own mother was doing. Plus, I knew Michael wanted children, and I worried about speaking ill of his mom. Actually, Susan keeps asking when we'll have kids. She told me that washing children's clothes by hand could help with fertility, so I've been going to her house every other day to wash them. Michael looked at me in disbelief.
Really? You seriously think that will help you have kids?
After thinking for a moment, Michael seemed to make up his mind about something.
Let me talk to my mom. You don't have to go there anymore. Actually, Mom has some inheritance from my dad, and she said she wanted to try living on her own without depending on her son or grandchildren. I'm also going to see a doctor.
A doctor? Why?
Because having kids isn't just a woman's issue, right? Maybe there's something wrong with me, and it's better to know.
I admired this side of Michael. He took my concerns as seriously as his own. Thank you, but don't push yourself too hard.
It's for you, Anna. I can't just sit by and do nothing.
However, it was clear that Susan wouldn't quiet down so easily.
I talked to Mom. You don't have to go over there anymore.
Thank you. I'm sorry for putting you through this, Michael.
No, don't worry about it. Turns out the difficulty in having kids might be because of me.
Michael spoke apologetically.
But the doctor said it's manageable with medication and regular visits. We'll see how it goes, and then decide what to do next.
It seemed like the issue was resolved for the moment, but it wasn't over yet. A little while later, a package arrived at our house. It was a cash-on-delivery package from Susan. Inside, there were several books and a long letter. The letter expressed Susan's anger about the conversation Michael had with her. And the books were about pregnancy and child rearing. obviously well used. Honestly, I felt a complex mix of anger and astonishment towards her for going this far. When I talked to Michael about it, it seems he felt the same way.
I told her to stop, and she's still doing this.
What should we do with these books? Honestly, even if we're told to read them.
My mom just wants a grandchild so badly, she can't see anything else. I'm really sorry for making you feel this way.
After thinking, Michael carefully chose his words. It must be tough for him, being caught between his mom and his wife.
She is my mom, but I want to protect my wife, Anna, the most. If it comes to hurting you, I'll need to rethink my relationship with her.
But she's still your mom, right? I don't want you to have regrets if something happens.
Weddings and funerals are unavoidable, but beyond that, we don't need to interact. I'm really sorry for not realizing this sooner.
Michael apologized to me. We decided that outside of necessary social obligations, I would avoid any contact with Susan, blocking her calls and refusing her packages. Michael was still sending her a little money on his own, but since that was a matter between him and his mom, I chose to stay out of it. For a while, we lived peacefully without seeing Susan. Maybe keeping her away was the best thing Michael did for my stress. About 10 years after these problems with Susan started, I was sitting on a park bench, leisurely drinking my coffee. As I savored my coffee, which I hadn't enjoyed in a while, a voice came from behind me.
It's been a while. Still childless. You're a defective woman who can't show me my grandchild.
For a moment, I didn't recognize who it was. But it was my mother-in-law, Susan, much thinner and smaller than before. She's still the same person who looks down on others over the years. Her spiteful gaze made the warm coffee I was enjoying suddenly taste cold and bitter. It was a stark reminder of how emotions can dramatically alter our sense of taste. Well, Susan.
Not showing your face around. What's that about? Surely you haven't been saying unnecessary things to Michael.
I didn't mean it like that, Susan said while poking the ground near my feet with her cane.
What's your intention avoiding your husband's mother to this extent?
She scrutinized me from head to toe with a tone full of sarcasm.
Sitting here alone in the park, sipping coffee so elegantly, you must feel very pleased with yourself.
Susan hasn't changed since the day she commanded me to wash a stranger's baby clothes. I had managed to live peacefully without seeing her for 10 years. I would prefer not to meet her if possible, but I gathered my courage to speak. My children are right over there. Susan looked puzzled for a moment, but then she burst into laughter. She was laughing so hard that her teeth were showing. Is it so funny to her that I have children? She must have decided long ago that it was impossible for me to have children. That's why I think she can take such an attitude without any qualms. It's her prerogative to believe that only those with children can be happy, but I wish she wouldn't impose her values on others. Then she suddenly turned serious and glared at me. I braced myself for what she might say next.
And here I was wondering what you would come up with. Aren't you considerably older than Michael? As if you could have children.
It's true that I'm older than Michael, but it's offensive to assume that precludes me from having children. After all, many couples with an age difference manage to have children without issue. I took a deep breath, ready to speak my mind. That's why. Suddenly, Susan put her index finger to my lips. She raised her finger, signaling me to stop talking, and glared at me.
You should have just done as I said. I don't know what you told him, but you made Michael run away from me. No child would come to such a cursed person.
I felt the weight of her oppression. Having been estranged for 10 years, honestly, I felt physically threatened. The thought of being swallowed up by this situation made me anxious. As Susan was berating me, my children ran over from a short distance, looking concerned. I felt terrible for making them see me like this.
Mom, what's wrong? Is this person someone you know?
Well, this person is. I hesitated to tell Mary and Emma the truth. Although Susan brings back bitter memories for me, she is their grandmother. Is it right to keep them apart based on my personal feelings and reluctance to meet her? But how should I introduce her? I was conflicted. Mary and Emma had never met Susan before, and I hadn't even mentioned her, so they wouldn't suspect she was their grandmother. Then Mary and Emma began to whisper among themselves. They were trying to whisper, but I could hear their voices.
Emma, could this person be? Right? Mary, do you think so too? Because she was also around the other time, it must be her.
Susan pretended not to notice their whispering but approached Mary and Emma. Her hands trembled as she reached out to touch them, and the two of them watched with indescribable expressions. Indeed, to Mary and Emma, she was a stranger. Having a trembling hand suddenly thrust toward them would understandably be terrifying.
Could you really be Michael's children, my grandchildren?
Susan approached Mary and Emma as if it were a touching reunion. Then Mary and Emma stepped back a few paces and said to her,
Aren't you the nagging old lady from the store?
What do you mean?
You thought so too? I thought the same.
The two suddenly got excited, and I couldn't understand what was happening.
She's always at the store near our school. Exactly. We always see her yelling at the clerks.
What are you talking about?
She's the person from the store near our school. She's famous for loudly demanding her money back from the clerks. Right? She only yells at the young people and says nothing when the person wearing a manager's badge is there.
I had never heard this before, but it was clear she was selectively targeting people to harass. It was as if she only attacked the vulnerable.
I'm just teaching them that they should listen to their elders. I'm doing the right thing.
That's so. Mary and Emma looked at me. Thinking I was being unfairly accused by the nagging old lady from the store, they suddenly sprang into action.
Mom hasn't done anything wrong. Please stop.
Susan, pretending not to hear, moved closer to the two. For Susan, meeting Mary and Emma must have been a momentous occasion. Tears even appeared in her eyes.
Really, my grandchildren? Well, since we're here, let me get a good look at your faces.
Don't come any closer. If something happens to Mom, I'll sound this.
Then, Emma brandished a personal alarm. Seeing the bright-colored, large personal alarm, Susan seemed to shrink back. Anyone would flinch if threatened with a personal alarm. A grandmother being treated like a suspicious person by her grandchildren is certainly not common. I instinctively tried to ensure the safety of the two. Then Susan started shaking uncontrollably.
That's so.
Being treated like a stranger by her long-awaited grandchildren must have been a huge shock. Susan, shivering, looked quite small. However, I was more concerned about something else. I decided to confront Susan further. According to Mary and Emma, you've been demanding refunds at the convenience store. Why is that?
Well, because they keep pushing useless stuff on me that I end up having to return.
She suddenly showed a defiant attitude. Her tone suggested she believed she hadn't done a single thing wrong. I decided to ask her the question she would hate to hear the most. Susan, are you having financial difficulties? Is that why you can engage in such embarrassing behavior in public?
Embarrassing. How dare you say such disrespectful things to an elder?
Believing she deserved respect, it was clear she was uncomfortable having her motives questioned, and Susan seemed a bit flustered. But to be aggressive only towards young clerks, that's usually too embarrassing for most people to do. It's impressive that you don't feel that way, Susan.
Shut up. Enough already.
Susan clenched her teeth in frustration. Then Mary, with a puzzled look, said,
This woman always shouts for a refund after she's finished eating, waving around her empty containers.
That would make sense. It was absurd, brandishing empty containers and yelling. What do you even do with empty containers?
I don't know, but she keeps saying, doing this to a poor old woman who has no money.
The children's words made me realize something. Are you having financial difficulties?
Yes, it's terrible to think about being old and in need of money.
As far as I remember, Susan's house used to be filled with branded goods. She probably spent all of her husband's inheritance. It must be tough to live struggling with money.
If you understand, could you send me a little money, $1,500, or even $1,000 would do?
I dodged Susan's gaze as she leaned in and said, I refuse.
What?
After all you've done, now you ask for help when you're in trouble. That's too much. Susan glared at me, visibly upset.
You're really heartless to not offer a helping hand to such a frail old woman.
As usual, she looked at me as if it were only natural that I should extend a helping hand to her. But there's no need for that. It's all your own doing.
It's sad that these kids have to be raised by a parent like you.
Mary and Emma then stepped in front of me and addressed Susan.
It's not sad at all. We love our mom and don't say terrible things. If you say anything more awful, we'll really go to the police.
Shocked by Mary and Emma's sudden retaliation, Susan was at a loss for words. It must be devastating for her, having longed for grandchildren, to be rebuked by them. I couldn't bear it if I were in her place. Should I give you something you really need right now, Susan?
Really?
Of course. Just wait here. I ran to a nearby store and bought something.
What is this? You think I'm old enough to use this?
I placed a package of adult diapers in front of Susan. The package, prominently labeled Sleek Hair Diapers, was enough to intimidate Susan. She turned bright red with anger. You made me wash children's clothes until my hands got rough, saying it was practice for when you have kids. Don't you remember? Susan's face turned awkward. After mumbling for a while, she murmured in a low voice,
I did it thinking of you. I wanted grandchildren quickly. All my friends have them, and I was the only one left out, so it's the same for me.
For Susan's sake. And because everyone else has grandchildren, you want them too? Are you a child? Susan glared at me resentfully.
Treating people like they are old or like children, you'll see, it will come back to bite you.
It's convenient how you think it's okay for you, but not for others. Then Michael's voice came from behind. He had coincidentally seen us and came over.
I can hardly believe it, but you're not still harassing Anna, are you?
Harassment sounds so harsh. It's just that, well,
I explained the situation to Michael. It seems like Susan is out of money. She's been causing trouble at the local convenience store. Last time I was at her house, it was filled with designer bags and wallets. Michael's normally calm expression suddenly hardened.
Mom, weren't you supposed to be managing with Dad's inheritance without bothering anyone? And didn't you promise to stay away from Anna?
no, I just happened to run into Anna.
Come on, how could it be a coincidence? In this huge park, especially a children's park, and you just happened to bump into Anna. Who would believe that?
Susan fell silent. Michael had hit the nail on the head.
You've always loved buying designer goods, but are you still doing that now?
Well, I just kept buying bags and shoes that suited each occasion, and it kind of got out of hand.
I've been sending you money out of my own allowance, and you were buying that many bags and wallets. I told you before to only buy what you need. I feel betrayed by your wasteful spending.
She then clung to Michael.
This is all a mistake, a lie.
What's a mistake? A lie. It's clear now that you're a liar. Don't contact me anymore, and of course, no more money from me.
Michael turned and walked away, never looking back at his mom. She collapsed on the spot. Rejected by her own son, she likely wouldn't recover from this.
If only you had hurried up and had children, it would have been better if you had them while I could see them.
Well, I didn't have children for your sake, Susan. Then I went home with Mary and Emma. I thought I'd never want to meet her again. And it seemed they hadn't seen her since I warned them to be careful when going to and from school. One day, relieved that all was quiet, I got a call from the hospital. Apparently, a few days after our encounter, Susan had tripped and fallen at a step in the neighborhood supermarket. When I went to the hospital to pick her up, I found Susan in bed, along with the supermarket manager and a police officer. She had taken a bad fall and apparently broken her leg. I learned that she had been secretly taking items from the ready meals section, and the store had been watching her.
No, this is...
I don't want to hear your excuses. It's embarrassing, so please don't contact me ever again.
What can I do? Before, Michael used to send me money, but that stopped.
I was at a loss for words.
And nobody would tell me your contact info. I felt lonely.
Well, that figures. Apparently, she was trying to get in touch with me one way or another. She must have been asking around, hoping someone would tell her our whereabouts. Susan has always believed that if she says something, people will listen. However, I had taken thorough precautions beforehand. I informed various people about Susan's behavior and the unpleasant experiences I had endured with her, while also asking them not to give out my contact information. The last thing I wanted was to meet such a self-centered person again. In the end, no one had given Susan our contact details. I heard that some had even blocked her calls, likely because she was quite disliked within the circle. Anyone would naturally distance themselves from such a person. Given her nature, it wasn't surprising to hear she was being blocked. Ultimately, she spent her days in the hospital alone. She's lashing out at hospital staff because of the stress, and she's been given severe warnings. It's manageable for now, but who knows what will happen next. This is her way of continuing to go crazy without realizing how much she is hated. I'm enjoying peaceful days with Mary, Emma, and Michael. I was worried about what would happen when we unexpectedly met Susan in the park, but I'm glad I took decisive action. It was good to discuss our problems with her with Michael. Together as a couple, we went through treatment, and through this process, we were able to meet Mary and Emma. I've also come to understand that if you don't value people like Susan, it eventually comes back to affect you as well.
Mom! Over here, hurry up! Mom, you're so slow.
Mary and Emma were beckoning with bursting smiles. I ran to catch up with them and gave them a big hug. I want to cherish the happiness of living these joyful days with Mary, Emma, and Michael.